Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I decided I would record this week's video outside. I actually left Los Angeles. I packed up everything that I had, which as you know is just one single plant, and moved up to my folks' house for quarantine because I figure there's not really much point being in the city when everything's shut down and I don't have a job. So I decided to go where there's more nature, which is my hometown, and here I am recording this video. So this week I figured I'd just do a sort of a chill video about my experience journaling, because I know there's a lot of videos out there of people who are like, oh, I journaled for 30 days, this is what happened, blah blah blah. I'm gonna give my experience being somebody who's journaled for many years. But I want to share my story with journaling because I've both used journaling as sort of an unhealthy coping mechanism, which sounds very strange, but I'll get into it. And now it's a lot more of a healthy coping mechanism for me, and I'll be explaining that too. But basically, as a brief history, I've always been a kid who journals a lot. I've always had diaries here and then. Normally I never really stuck with them. It was just random, me writing on a piece of paper how I was feeling and stuff like that. I didn't start journaling seriously until middle school, in which I journaled for those, 7th and 8th grade, the full years. When I look back later in high school reading those diaries or whatever, I just got super depressed because everything I wrote was super dark. It was like a really fucked up time in my life, I guess, but basically I couldn't read anymore, so I threw those journals away. And then I didn't start journaling again until college. And in college it started out fine, the journaling maybe didn't benefit myself that much, but it definitely wasn't a detriment. It was just kind of something that I did. And then I went through something difficult,
They ask you how you are and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine. But
my last year of college, and then my journaling actually kind of got sort of destructive. This is so weird, but I was journaling maybe like 3 or 4 hours a day, like between all my classes. Anytime I was not doing something, I was journaling. And instead of like being reflective and like thinking things through, I was just writing everything in my subconscious, which, to be clear, when I write, it's all of my subconscious, but now I can look at what I wrote and like kind of reflect in my head and see, okay, what's like a healthy thought there, what's something that's destructive, what's actually real, what's not. Back then I didn't really have that sort of insight into myself. So when I was writing, it was basically just all this horrible shit that I was feeling, all this vengeance I had built up, all my negative thoughts about myself, and I was writing it all as if it was fact. And my conscious self was also believing it as if it was fact too, because I was just so far removed from like my higher brain or my conscious brain or whatever. Like with Freud's whole concept of the ego and the id, it was basically just me indulging the id to a degree where it overcame my ego, where I had no sort of critical reflection on what thoughts were true and which ones was just me being like offended or taking things personally, or just being, cruel because I was just feeling really not well at the time. I didn't really have that, so the more that I indulged in these subconscious thoughts and let them take over me, it was almost like the more psychotic I became. But basically it was pretty destructive for me, and I got kind of addicted to it, and I think it was just sort of a way to cope with loneliness. But basically I had to take a step back from journaling because I was letting that subconscious part of my mind that was very destructive and toxic take up my entire mind, and me journaling about it literally was not changing anything because I was not reflecting on what I was writing, and I wasn't reflecting while I was writing either. It was literally just me like spitting venom onto a page and then just leaving it. And so how I got back into journaling and how it's actually helped me now, because I do journal every day, sometimes in the morning and night, most times just in the morning, is that later on in that year I was still, dealing with harder things, but I was kind of just writing when I really needed to vent, and then after I would write, I would reflect on the page and sort of take the extra time to understand what I'm feeling, why I'm feeling, whether it's healthy or not, and just not believing that narrative that I was putting out on paper as if it was 100% fact. Like I would be writing like, oh, I fucking hate myself, oh, I wish I was fucking dead, like, like all that emo shit, like you're worthless, you're disgusting, you're ugly, like over and over and over again on the page was basically some of the stuff that I was writing, plus also a lot of angry stuff about people who I was angry about. And then after I took a break from journaling and I went to therapy and all that, I'd only journal when I was really going through some internal conflict that I really wanted to flesh out and write and actually think about, and not just spew, venom onto a page or whatever. And then once I started doing that, I kind of got into the habit of writing more often, not just when I was upset, but when I was celebrating good moments too. And then instead of my journal just being, full of horrible stuff, it was like a mixture of things. And when I would write down horrible things, and even now when I write down terrible things, I take a step back, I reflect, and I try to think about it in a way that's not reactive. Because I think back then I was just very reactive, and I reacted very violently towards myself and mentally towards others. I never hurt anybody. But now when I write and I get into those modes of like just writing horrible things about myself or whatever, being insecure and all that, I could take a step back and be like, okay, this isn't the way that things really are. This is just your perception. Let's think about a healthier way to like think about this. Let's try to think about other causes for, you know, the way that you're feeling, and other causes for like what's going on in your life and stuff, and just try to understand yourself more. And ever since I started doing that, yeah, journaling has been really helpful for me. It really helps me regulate my moods and emotions. It's become a habit for me that's not in like an addictive way. It's just a habit where I'm able to clear my head every morning. I'm able to understand what I'm feeling, and then I'm able to like theorize about why I'm feeling that way, and then writing out how I feel about that theorization or whatever. Just kind of trying to reconstruct the way I think about things in a way that's more healthy. If you don't know about cognitive behavioral therapy or whatever, I definitely recommend looking that up. I've never done it. Well, I've done it inadvertently. I try to treat myself as if I'm a child and I'm trying to parent myself, so like being compassionate towards myself or whatever, instead of being hateful. Like if I make a mistake, I'm not gonna be like, wow, you fucking bitch, like you deserve to die. Instead, I'm just like, oh, like you made a mistake, like let's learn from it or whatever, let's figure it out and let's move on. But basically, I don't just write out what I'm feeling subconsciously. I write out what I'm feeling subconsciously, and then I figure out why I'm writing that way, and then I just reconstruct what I'm feeling and thinking. Not in a way that's like I'm brainwashing myself, but in a way that I'm just trying to understand myself more compassionately, so that way I could change myself from being really reactive and like kind of like a villain into being somebody who understands myself and is able to have a healthy relationship with myself and, you know, be happy. I don't know. But basically, journaling really reduces my anxiety. It also makes me feel less lonely, because it's not like I could talk to my friends every second of the day. As much as I wish that was the case, that would just be really annoying for them. And it would also probably be pretty codependent. But instead, I, you know, journal in the morning, sometimes at nighttime, about how I'm feeling, whether it's a good day or not. And it helps me honestly just get into touch with myself, because in my experience it's a lot different to just listen to your internal monologue in your head all day. You know, that's always going on in the background. At least if you're like me, it's always going on in the background, even when you're trying to sleep at night. And actually writing that monologue out on paper, where you could first of all get it out of your brain, so you're not just focusing on that all the time. You could have peace in yourself, but also so that way you could actually like reflect on the monologue, because you see it right in front of you, and it's like, oh, why do I think that way? Like that doesn't seem right. Or like, dude, I'm so wrong about this thing. Like that's just a lie. Like why did I think that? It's just a lot easier to reflect on yourself when it's written down, in my experience and my opinion. But basically, journaling is something that I recommend for everyone, especially if you have anxiety. But that being said, if you're journaling a lot and it seems like it's not helping you, or if it seems like it's actually doing worse for you, I definitely would recommend either going to therapy, but again, if you can't afford it, because I know it could be really expensive, looking up cognitive behavioral therapy online and just trying to like do that. And then something I've always just done for fun throughout my life, because it's of interest to me, is I just read about psychology all the time. Like, you know, read the classics, read the currents, read all of that. That's always a fun time, and it's helpful for learning about yourself too. They always say that therapists are the ones who are psycho. They just have worked through it, or maybe they haven't worked through it. They always say the people who study psychology are the ones who need the most psychological help, and yeah. But overall, even if you don't start journaling after this video or whatever, the best thing I think you could do if you're going through a hard time is to just be compassionate towards yourself. Treat yourself as if you were a friend. You know, treat yourself as if you were a baby or something like that. Like, just try to treat yourself the way you want to be treated. The golden rule. This video is getting really cheesy right now, but yeah, that's just my whole experience with journaling. I did this video obviously because it didn't require a lot of prep work or research, and I've been busy moving this week and all that, getting acclimated to my new environment. But yeah, that's my little video. I've been rambling on for probably like 20 minutes now. Okay, it's getting too old. All right, I will see you guys next time. Subscribe to my channel if you're new. Yeah, and check out my other videos if you'd like, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I hope quarantine is not, you know, screwing everybody up too much mentally, although it has been a challenge. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.